So this question is testing you on the concept of increasing and decreasing function. So you will need to recall the definition of an increasing function. So definition of an increasing function is dy dx greater than 0. So if you recall the definition, then the first thing you should do will be to get a dy dx. So if you look at the equation format, what formula should you apply to get your dy dx? So the numerator has x, the denominator has x. So you should be applying your quotient rule. You should be applying your quotient rule to get your dy dx. Okay, then later, after you apply the quotient rule to get the dy dx, we are going to execute the dy dx greater than 0. Okay, so what is the purpose of the graph here? If you have a look at the graph, you can have an expectation of which region is an increasing function. So the region that is increasing function will be somewhere here. Somewhere on, because the curvature is like, it's like always going up. So we are expecting the region to be somewhere there. So we can see whether after our calculation, will we be able to get the range of x around the region. Okay, so let's try to apply your dy dx quotient rule first. So if you're going to apply your quotient rule, your u will be 2x minus 3. Your b will be x squared plus 4. Okay, I will not be showing you the whole of the quotient rule. So if you apply your quotient rule properly, you should be able to get something like this. Okay, so that is the first part that you should be able to get it correct first. So this one will be the part that earn you some technical mark. Subsequently, we're going to apply the definition of increasing function. So when dy dx is greater than 0, so we will set the whole dy dx greater than 0. Okay, after this part, some students will think of cross multiplication. For students who think of cross multiplication, they will do something like this, and then eventually they will get something like this here. Okay, so if you are the one who think of cross multiplication, your thinking is actually not very correct. So you should be thinking of the fact that the dy dx comprises of a numerator component and a denominator component. So there is a numerator component and there's a denominator component. So you think about a numerator dividing by a denominator, and you will like the whole thing to be a positive value. You should be thinking it along this way. So there is a numerator component, there is a denominator component, and when you divide the two components, you would like the fraction to be positive. So that should be what you're thinking. So this is the numerator component, and then this is the denominator component. So you should be thinking it this way. And if you observe the denominator component is a squared function. So any squared function will be positive. So our denominator is a confirmed positive function. So you are not doing cross multiplication. In fact, you are thinking along the line that the denominator function is always positive. So the denominator function is always positive. That means it's already something that is fixed. So the denominator function is always positive. So in order for the whole fraction to be positive, I need my numerator to be positive as well. So the denominator function is positive. So I will need my numerator function to be positive. So it is not a case of cross multiply. It is a case of you look at the numerator function, you look at the denominator function. How are you going to divide the two functions to make it positive? So the denominator function is always positive. So if you would like the whole fraction to be positive, the numerator function has to be positive. So that is how you will derive at this quadratic inequality. So from here is your concept of quadratic inequality. So if you look at this quadratic, it's a negative quadratic. So if you are the one if you are like me, I don't like to deal with negative quadratic function, you can divide both sides by -2. So usually I prefer to divide both sides by -2. Okay, the trick is, or rather the possible careless mistake will be sometimes students might forget to reverse the sign when you divide by a negative number. So do remember to divide by a negative number. Then you do your factorization. So essentially, you should see it as a quadratic function. So this is a small graph. So this is the small graph. And mentally, you need to calculate the x-intercept. So where you will get a -1 and 4. And you are shading below the x-axis. So when you shade below the x-axis, this is the range of x. So you might want to see whether the range of x, does it have some rough value that matches the graph. Okay, so if let's say after understanding this question, you find that you are quite weak in quadratic inequality, you are not very familiar with it, okay, you can let me know, then we can do a separate practice. Okay, so this is the question on increasing and decreasing function.